This is what I hated about the Trump administration the first time around. The main thing, or one of the main things that I hated, was it was endless BS. Constantly, every day there was something else, man. Every single day. And now, here we come again.
It's like the bar is so freaking low. It's scary. You know, one thing I have to say is, you know, people that know me and know you know, from a ideological standpoint where we are and where political standpoint where we are. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that while I had many complaints about the Reagan administration, about the two Bush administrations, the one thing I don't believe I ever thought was those are just freaking incompetent people. I never had that thought.
Alrighty, welcome in everybody and all you kiddies. It is your favorite political podcast, Alabama Politics This Week, with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, David?
Man, it's a good day. You know, it's a good day. I'm slowly recovering from the disaster of the Trump re-election. You know, slowly recovering. How about you?
You know, not too bad. It's not my time of year. I do love Christmas, but you know, the weather has turned cooler, and I do not care for that at all. It's about right now. It's probably about 60 degrees cooler than I like it to be. You know, it's about 60. So you know, once we get it back up to around 120, I'm happy. But no, it's you know, it's cooler, man. It's really, I'm gonna have to go and join a gym because I'm gonna have to work out inside.
You said 120.
Yeah, man, I can
Fahrenheit.
I can handle the heat.
Good night.
I'm like a lizard. But no, it's you know, it's nice time of year. I do like the Christmas season and all that, but I just wish it was warmer. So, but hey, before we get running, I need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Hospitality and the folks that sponsor this fine program. Matter of fact, we're going to have one of the folks on from Wind Creek Hospitality, Arthur Mothershed, who is vice president and of economic development and governmental relations with the tribe, talk about their recent purchase of the Birmingham Racecourse and also the opening of the brand new casino that they operate in Chicago Southland. Both of those are I think, big moves for them, and I think Birmingham is going to be a big move for the state as well. We'll get more on that from him, and you know, I think, you know, we should say about them, because this is, you know, Alabama Politics This Week brought to you by Wind Creek Hospitality. I just think that it's the perfect sponsorship, you know, because they don't even ask for anything. You know, when you're doing a show like ours, it's really perfect, because a lot of times you'll have people that want to interject and want to do this, want to do that with you. Mm-hmm. They don't. You know, they didn't never have anything. As a matter of fact, I've essentially had to beg them to come on today, you know, to talk about this. And so, you know, it's nice. They're really good, and they operate some really, really nice hotels and casinos around the state and around the country. And I think you'll enjoy yourself if you're into that sort of thing. If you're into nice hotels, nice spas, nice restaurants, and maybe playing some games here or there, I think you'll enjoy yourself. So if you're headed over to a ball game in Auburn or something, running through Montgomery, you know, stop in Wetumpka, stay at the resort, go over to Montgomery to the casino. If you're headed down to the beach, stop at the place in Atmore, or just go there. I did that. Pretty nice. Had a pretty nice time. So you won't be disappointed. Look them up online, Wind Creek Hospitality. Book you a stay. You will not be disappointed in those guys. They do it top notch, and you know, that's just how they roll. And you know, one of the things I was talking to the person who owns the Birmingham Racecourse, Louis Benefield, the McGregor family, and you know, and they were talking about the employees at the Birmingham Racecourse and how they were making sure that they were all taken care of. And you know, they're going to go in now and be part of the Wind Creek Hospitality team, and they talked about, they were very proud of saying, you know, that we're going to welcome those folks in, and we're going to put them on our benefits plan. We're going to put them on our program, which is nice. It's nice.
Sure,
It's you look at comparable places around, and it is significantly higher. And so it's they appreciate people doing good work, and the way that they appreciate that is they compensate them adequately for that good work, and that's always a nice thing when a business does that, and you don't have to beg and threaten to leave and all that kind of stuff. It's always nice. So, anyways, let's get started here. We're gonna start local, and because we have a couple of the local things that are going on that I think are important, and I know David does as well. One being a Glock switch ban, and we've talked about before, but I think is getting some traction at this point, and because of a lot of deadly shootings that have taken place using these devices. But the one we're going to start with is a bill by Wandolin Gavon, a representative from the Birmingham area, and it deals with missing Black children, which is a thing. Oh, well, first of all, I know you have some experience in this world, right, David?
Yeah, I have some through the podcast that I helped to create and produce called Finding Tamika, and just for those who don't know, it's on Audible, and it's the story of Tamika Houston, who went missing about 20 years ago. She went missing in South Carolina and was eventually. It was discovered what had happened to her about a year after she went missing. And for those of you who haven't heard the podcast, I won't spoil it for you, but I will say the podcast really takes the listener on a journey to understand how Tamika's family had to deal with law enforcement and the media, local and national media, to try to find out what happened to her. Specifically, the challenge was young Black women, typically who go missing, don't get the same kind of coverage, media coverage, and even perhaps it'd be fair to say law enforcement involvement that young white women get. And you can say, "Oh, he's playing the race card again." No, this is factual, and it doesn't take rocket science to see, even anecdotally, that's true. If you think about, cases like the Natalie Holloway case and some other cases that we've seen through the years. So that's the story of Finding Tamika. And Representative Gavon's bill is focusing, Josh, on Black people between the ages of 12 and 25, which is a vulnerable age group when it comes to these missing cases and abductions and the other things that happen a lot of times, unfortunately, to some young people in this age group. And honestly speaking, they need, if the proof is, Josh, you just go to your local Walmart. I don't know if people pay attention, but I know if, times I've been in Walmart, you go up there and they sometimes will have a section of people, photographs of people who have gone missing. And you'll see in these photographs, you'll see a range of people, not just young Black people, but a lot of times you'll see young Black people, young Black women who've gone missing. And sometimes these people will be missing for months, sometimes years. And so Representative Gavon, I think, rightly feels like some added special attention is needed to make sure that we have some mechanisms in place to try to help families locate their missing loved ones.
So I have a little bit of experience with this, as well. And to the extent that there's aware of the problem that often occurs, because you're right, Black children, especially older Black children, do not get the attention that white kids get. I mean, they just don't. I mean, especially affluent white kids. Okay, I should say that. I think there are probably some cases of poor white kids that get similar treatment. So when I was in Montgomery, we did a lot of reporting about what was taking place in more poverty stricken areas and stuff. And one of the things that we took a look at, and there was a really good story written by, I have to go back and try to remember the person because it was several years back, about the homeless youth problem in Montgomery. And these kids that for a variety of different reasons ended up on the streets. These are young teens, and it was, all the problems that you would imagine, drug abuse, physical abuse. My parents had been arrested. They fell through the cracks in a system somewhere, foster home that, turned out to be a hellhole, and they ended up out on the streets. And matter of fact, I did a story of a girl who had been homeless, and a local pastor had taken her in, and let her, because she was friends with his daughter at the time, and she ended up, getting back in school, started playing basketball, ended up earning a scholarship to play at Alabama State University. It was a really, really great story. And, but trust me, few and far between on that. But, it always struck me about how we had these kids, man. I mean, you're talking about 12, 13, 14-year-old kids, and nobody cared, I mean, nobody cared that they were gone. I mean, I'm sure in some cases there was somebody out there that wondered where they were from time to time, but I mean, for the most part, it was as though they didn't count, and it was so disheartening and sad, to see what was going on with them. And even when there were cases, there was a case just over the last week in Montgomery where a young lady, I think she was 15, 16 years old, she went missing. And the father was, trying to go on Facebook and file police reports about her missing and all this kind of stuff. And the response, there was a lot of response, about, sharing her photo and stuff like that. But there was also a lot of response of people saying, is she really missing though? Can a 15 or 16-year-old go missing? And ended up, they located her in New York City. And so, I mean, but it was, it's not handled the same. It's not handled the same at all. And for whatever reason, a lot of people tend to think of black kids differently than they think of white kids and black families and white families. And for some reason or another, they seem to believe that, the caring and the worry is different. I don't know why that is. I don't know why, if it's the situations are unrelatable, and so you just automatically apply a different. Because I don't think it's a callousness. I don't think that the people when they look at it, they're just saying, oh well, I don't care about it's black kid, who cares? I don't really think that's the case. I think that they automatically think of it as, well, there's something else going on there, or there's a problem here, and I don't think it's, again, I think some of it is not even tied to race. I think it's the status of the family. You think of, if a kid goes missing from a trailer park, you think, it's probably like a meth situation or something going on there, and you attach some level of responsibility to the victims of these things, or whatever has happened, and to the parents, or to the guardians of these kids, and that's especially true if you hear that the kid has a guardian. Guardian. Oh, well, there you go. It's, and as though, those people can't be every bit as attached to this kid, or as though that kid is not worthy of then being found and made sure that they're safe and secure. And it just, I applaud what she's doing with this. I think it's a good thing, and maybe it'll bring some level the playing field a little bit, so to speak, on this, and and because it's not taken away from white kids who are missing. Right. It's not doing anything like that, and
Yeah.
I also think there's a big problem within the media landscape and within law enforcement as well on this sort of stuff.
Well, and I think from what I've seen and looking at the bill, it's really just a sort of a focusing, sort of creating a system and a focusing of law enforcement efforts. And, that's really, as far as I can tell from the bill, that's the gist of it. I mean, it's designed to focus specifically on these young people in a way that would not ordinarily be done, and in a way that hopefully will encourage the media to become partners in the effort, to enlist them in the effort. One thing I want to say, Josh, is, and it's not just my assessment, but I think also of social scientists, from what I can tell, there's a very, and I'm just going to be blunt here. This is not an indictment of all white people by any stretch of the imagination. But I think as a society, white society has lower expectations of black people in the black community than they do than it does of itself, white society. So, in other words, if a black child goes missing, I think, as you indicated, the expectation is there must be some, explanation that would diminish the urgency. There must be some extenuating circumstance that diminishes the urgency and the danger. And that is something that I think is consistent with how white society has generally dealt with black people in this country through the years. In fact, there have been studies that have quantified even this when it comes to medical health care and medical examinations. They've proven that white doctors and white healthcare providers tend to believe that black people don't feel pain to the same degree that white people do. They seem to think we have a higher threshold of pain, which is really crazy if you think about it. But for whatever reason, there's still this line of thought that thinks that genetically black people are different than white people, when the truth is, genetically, as human beings, we're all the same. It doesn't matter what your skin color is.
Yeah.
The inside, no matter what the package is from the outside, on the inside, we're all the same.
Yeah, it's just, man, I'll tell you, I think I really am thankful every day that I had the experience of covering an HBCU, actually several different HBCUs. And because, man, growing up, I was a white kid in Alabama, growing up my whole life with, my parents were not racist, but you know what I mean? It's not like we were also taking, classes in Black history either. You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? It just, I worked at my grandparents' place with a bunch of black guys and got to know them, played basketball with a bunch of black guys and really considered them friends. And, but at the same time, I was a kid, I didn't know shit, you know what I mean? And so I went over there, and it was, it was introduced to this whole world of really intelligent black families, of this, generation after generation who had gone to college, who had gone through these schools, who had done these things, who, and it just, there was, I don't know that there was like one moment or anything like that, but, it settled in on me that, and having the conversation over so many years with these folks, that we're all basically the same. I mean, you mentioned the physical aspect. I would take it to way outside of that. I mean, you talk to black parents, up and down the economic ladder, and they want this. I guarantee you, their answer for life is the same as yours and your parents, and what you want for your kids. It's the same stuff, man. Always the same stuff. And it just always kind of struck me that this idea exists out there, and I think it kind of goes back to slavery. to Jim Crow, to a justification for being so callous and cruel to other human beings that you needed to make them lesser humans to a degree. You needed to make believe that they didn't feel pain the way that you felt pain. You needed to make believe that their family structure and their kids didn't matter when you ripped them apart, or when you shit all over them in a diner somewhere because they wanted to have a meal like you. That those things are. That's why you have those attitudes now, I think, about a lot of this stuff. And, it's unfortunate that it carries forward in the way that it does, and that it has been so ingrained in so many people. And that kids are literally suffering, from being unable to just get, the basic concerns that we have for so many others. And this kind of goes to, the problem with the Glock switch stuff that we're talking about. We have people that don't want to ban Glock switches, which, turn these weapons into uncontrollable tools of death. Literally, I think we posted at one time a picture or a video of Montgomery County Sheriff Derek Cunningham trying to fire one of these pistols that with a Glock switch on it, and it's insane. The man has fired a gun thousands and thousands of times, and he can't control it, and it just rattles off 16 rounds in a matter of 2 seconds, and it's just insanity that we can't get this. We can't get this banned. And, and it kind of goes back to, I'll never forget, man. I was covering crime and stuff in Montgomery. We had a spike in crime. I want to say it was around 2013 or so. And there was a big spike in murders at that time. And I remember then the mayor, Todd Strange, who I like Todd Strange. But he made a statement that I think kind of sums up all of this, and said that most of these folks who have been killed are drug dealers and criminals. And so the regular folk out there don't have anything to worry about. And I've thought, man, some of these guys who have been killed are, 17, 18-year-old kids. And I understand. He was obviously not intending to say something that was, degrading to people or to himself. But I just remember thinking, what a terrible attitude. Those are human beings you're talking about. And yes,
Somebody's
they've made mistakes, man. They've done some things that are wrong, certainly. But at the same time, shouldn't we be focused on why these kids are involved in this stuff, and what we're doing that are leaving them so far out in the cold that they're turning to this sort of a life? He described one of the murders that they talked about endlessly was to demonstrate the lack of respect for human life. Was there was 2 kids, and they got into an argument over a bag of potato chips, and one kid shot the other one over a bag of potato chips. And he said, what do you do with that? How do you do with that respect? I said, what it says to me is somewhere along the way, we had these 2 kids have been so disrespected, and there's been so little respect paid for their life, that they don't know that they're supposed to have respect for life, that they don't value it. And so what are we doing to correct that?
Well, I think you're absolutely right that it's that. I also think, at the same time, on the other side of our mouths, we like to talk about how the frontal lobe is not quite developed until, I think that's the part of the brain. The frontal lobe is not quite developed until a person is 25. And so, we use that argument when it's convenient.
When it's a white kid at Stanford raping a girl. Yeah.
Right. We use that argument when it's convenient, to try to explain away, callous or really reckless behavior. So, you can't have it both ways. And the reality is, and I think this is what you were alluding to, a lot of these kids have been desensitized because of the environments they've been raised in. But here's my question. And I say this because Josh, Alabama, as a bright ruby red state, has a church on darn near every corner, it seems like, where you have an intersection. And what is taught in church, is that we can be redeemed. That's the whole premise of Christianity. It's redemption. So where is this concept of redemption when it comes to these kids? How come we don't apply it to them? How come we treat them like they're trash, like they're castaways, irredeemable, incorrigible? How do we come to that conclusion? How do we know? We don't know. Those of us who believe in God, we're not God, So what we ought to be pushing for is, especially with these young people, is, let's see if we can help them to be redeemed. And I'm not talking about going to church or a religious perspective, but let's apply that same principle in a justice system context, and let's aim it towards redemption. How do we redeem these people? And what we will find out, I guarantee you, is that some of these folks that we treat like trash and that we say are incorrigible, in fact, are redeemable. In fact, can become productive members of society. I've seen it. I bumped into a young man. I say young man. He's probably in his late 40s now, but a young man here in Huntsville just within the past week or so, who when I first met him, I think he was in a GED program. He was probably in his very late teens, early 20s, was a business owner. Had what I thought was a completely legitimate legal business. He had like a car wash or car detailing business or something like that. It turned out that he also was a major drug dealer and maybe even was involved in some other things, right? He ended up doing federal time. But when he came out of the federal system and rejoined society, he became a very successful car salesman and began to achieve some other successes in business. And he lives an extremely productive life right now.
Yeah.
He's not unique. There are a whole lot of people in the system who are just like him if they can be given an opportunity.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we call it the Department of Corrections. For a reason, and we're doing a very poor job all the way around, in keeping kids out of prison and then doing things that adequately educate and reshape them once they're there. Matter of fact, we're kind of doing the opposite in most of our prisons where they go in and they come out worse, because they've been exposed to so much. And you're right. I get letters all the time from guys who would be absolutely productive citizens on the outside, who have a viewpoint and a perspective that I think is necessary for us to be better as a society. But we're going to keep them locked up because we don't really understand how to go about our job of making sure those folks are redeemed, or that we give them an opportunity to be redeemed. So. All right, let's slide out of here. When we come back, we'll visit with Arthur Mothershed with the Porch Band of Creek Indians and talk about the Wind Creek Hospitality's purchase of the Birmingham Racecourse and opening up a nice shiny spot up in Chicago. We'll be back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Hospitality with Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to have with us Arthur Mothershed, who's, let me make sure I got this right, Vice President of Economic Development and Governmental Relations. Am I correct?
Close. Executive Vice President of Business Development and Government Relations. So, very close.
We'll go back and fix that. We'll go back and fix that in the editing process.
Better when you mess it up and I have to correct you.
That sounds about right. Hey, thanks for calling. And we should say with Wind Creek Hospitality and with the Porch Band of Creek Indians, and so y'all have made some news over the last couple of weeks, nationally and especially in the state this week, with the opening of the Chicago Southland Casino, and also with the purchase agreement. I guess I think it'll be finalized here in a couple months. Of the Birmingham Racecourse. So I guess let's start local if we could, with Birmingham. And just why was purchasing Birmingham important to y'all? Because I know it was. I know this has been in the works for a while. So a deal like this doesn't happen overnight. And so, what was important about Birmingham, and and getting that location and bringing it into the fold for y'all?
So, I mean, the state of Alabama in general is very important to us. We've gotten comments in the past about investing in Pennsylvania. Certainly, you mentioned Illinois. We've even got some investments in the Caribbean, and we've gotten some negative comments actually about us taking money outside of the state and investing in other areas, when in fact we've invested in other areas and brought that money back into the state and trying to invest in it. Birmingham's a very vibrant community. I mean, it's one of the most vibrant cities in the state of Alabama. It's certainly been part of our marketing efforts and our business, in our Wetumpka and Montgomery properties. We derive a lot of business out of Birmingham, so it's always been very important to us. We've been working, to try and get something done on this for several years. It finally came about, and we're very excited to move forward. You did mention that there's a couple of months left on the diligence, and that's true, but we don't see anything coming forward that's gonna stop this deal. So we're very excited to move forward.
Yeah, I spoke to Lewis Benefield, who leads the thing for the McGregor family that owned the Birmingham Racecourse, and he said the same thing, that this is there's crossing T's and dotting I's and all that kind of stuff. He said, but there's nothing that's probably gonna. It would be a real surprise to everybody if something didn't happen, and that's the reason why y'all put the press release out, I guess. And so that property there, do you see that now? Because I wrote, after talking to some lawmakers, that they felt like the status of Birmingham and who owned it, who didn't own it, where it was going to be sold or not, was a little bit of a sticking point the last time when they were going through in the last session trying to get a deal passed for a comprehensive gaming legislation. Do you feel like now this sets that kind of in stone and removes one hurdle out of the way, or will it have any effect at all in potential gambling legislation in the upcoming session?
No, we think it removes one of the hurdles. I mean, obviously, the McGregor family, Lewis and those guys have a lot of influence in the state on gaming legislation, and rightfully so. We think we have our place there as well. So we thought it was important that we be able to come forward as a united, on a united front rather, and show the state that, look, we together want to work and get something done that will both impact the state and us. I mean, obviously us and the McGregor positively, and move forward. So certainly we think this removes a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah.
Arthur, I want to again thank you for joining us today, and also for the role that you guys play in helping us to remain viable as a podcast. What is has there been any study of the economic impact that Wind Creek Entertainment is having on the state of Alabama? Is it something that has been quantified in terms of actual dollars?
Yeah, I can't quote the exact number off the top of my head right now, David, but there's been a lot made that the tribe doesn't pay taxes on its trust properties, and I won't dispute that fact. I mean, it's absolutely a fact. But we've also invested hundreds of millions of dollars in capital investment to increase the size of our resorts, which employs several thousand people. And we're also very active in the community. I mean, we invest a lot back into the community, both through things that are important to us, and we think that are important to the communities that we operate in. Education, healthcare, law enforcement, and those things. We have several memorandum of agreements with the area that we operate in, where we have committed to continuing funds flowing into their operations or into the municipalities so that they can operate more efficiently or take advantage of the monies that we contribute. As far as the indirect impact, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, David. It's not a small number. We try as best we can for goods and services, any kind of construction, through renovations or anything like that, to involve the local or at least in-state businesses, so that we continue to improve the state. We believe that a rising tide raises more ships than just us.
Yeah, yeah. What about Birmingham? Can you give us a sense of what the economic impact will be there?
So we think even under its current, what they're currently operating, which is historical racing machines, there is opportunities to improve that. Certainly, positive legislation would move that needle greatly. I mean, a full casino resort in Birmingham would be hugely impactful. I mean, it would probably increase the employment there at least 4 times, not to mention the capital investment that we'd be willing to make, probably upwards of $500 million, assuming the right legislation is there. So on interim, it could be good, but if positive legislation comes forward, it could be massive.
Nice. Now, I wanted to ask you one other thing. If I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there had been some talk about, I think in an earlier iteration of the gambling legislation, or at least talks, negotiations, there was some talk about the possibility of Wind Creek having a presence in Northeast Alabama, Jackson County, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Is that accurate? And if that is accurate, have you given up on that, or is that still somewhere on the planning board?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. We've lobbied for and talked about the Northeast site. It was Jackson, maybe Madison. We ran into some opposition, and some of the leadership there not necessarily excited about having a casino in Northeast Alabama. But in all honesty, it's something I don't think we nor the state should give up on, because we have a lot of dollars that are flowing out of the state of Alabama, even to North Carolina and whatnot. Plus the dollars that you could capture from Tennessee, who currently doesn't have brick and mortar casinos. I mean, we think it would be a huge opportunity for the state of Alabama to look at, because there's untapped revenue in that area that could be brought into the state of Alabama for to improve the economic outlook for us. So I certainly don't think it should be off the table. It may be, but it's not because of us.
Right. Yeah. That I don't know who in Madison is pushing back on that, but I guarantee you it's not over here at our house. As I was listening, I was going to ask something else, and I'll get to it. But I was listening to you talk about, we'd be willing to do maybe upwards of $500 million investment in Birmingham. I know the Chicago Southland Casino was, I believe, $529 million spot. It was something similar to fix up the Pennsylvania location as well. Sometimes when you say these numbers, because you and I have talked a lot. And I know I went down, spent a lot of time, learned about the history of the tribe and where y'all came from, and the kind of the family atmosphere that's still present. Y'all kind of grew up together in houses that are around. Y'all literally grew up like fighting with each other in the backyards and stuff, and doing crazy kid stuff. And now y'all are running this operation. Are there times in a day when you do these things and do you ever take a step back and think, man, I'm talking about $500 million. I'm talking about us spending $500 million.
Oh, absolutely. When I first came to work for the tribe, obviously a member of the tribe, but I came to work for the tribe in 2003. We were operating out of mobile homes. We had them squeezed together, and 8-foot ceilings, smoke everywhere. Of course, in Atmore, we had the cinder block bingo hall, which was actually an improvement on what we were doing in the central Alabama.
Right.
Yeah, we were talking about $5 million decisions, and they were very tough. And I remember sitting at the table in early 2007, and we were talking about going to market. And at that time, we were talking about a $500 million, but it was for Atmore and the development of Wetumpka. And there was some hand wringing and a lot of consternation. And it ended up the stock market kind of crashed, the bond market actually. And we were actually sitting in New York about to go on a road show, and one of the investment bankers walked in and told us, he said, "Hey, the bond market just crashed." So we had to put together a
Oh.
consortium of banks, and we already had about $60 million, I believe, in the ground at Atmore, and we needed about 180 more to finish it. And we were able to cobble together enough banks to loan us that 180 million. But there was a lot of talk around the table. There was a lot of like I said, hand wringing, and just, oh my God, can we go in debt for this? And I think it was about 14, 15 months. I get the timelines a little bit wrong sometimes, and we actually paid that off after the opening. And the rest is history. I mean, it's been a great ride.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I talked to Keith Martin, who's a member of the tribe down there at one time, and he said, it's just sometimes it just feels like you're on a rocket ship, and he said we've not even been able, you can't even breathe. That sometimes like we're just now to the point where we can kind of set up and look around and see where we've landed. But yeah, when and as part of that. Because I was going to ask you about Chicago Southland and the opening of that. I mean, y'all beat out national players to win that contract, and to open up that casino there, and you're partnered with some of just world class folks in the restaurant and resort business, and I mean that in and of itself, that entered into that world. And then because you also talked about, we get a lot of pushback because we're doing this, we're doing that over here. Do you feel like sometimes when you come back to Alabama after being in these other worlds, Pennsylvania and Chicago, and you hear kind of, and I'm going to describe it this way, I know y'all wouldn't, but I'm going to describe it this way, is this ignorant kind of talk from people about what y'all are doing or what you're capable of doing, because that was a big talk last time. Well, why are we going to let the Porch Creeks do this stuff? Why don't we go out and get a big casino development to come in here? And I was telling people, this is a big casino. What are you talking about? And when you come, is it hard to adjust? Is it hard to keep the anger in check at times?
No, I mean, I get their argument at times. I don't get their argument. I understand where they're coming from, I guess I should say. They, some of them feel like we already have 3 facilities in the state, so why do we want more? Because the simple answer is home. I mean, we want to invest. We want to invest at home, and we want to be good partners. Certainly in Pennsylvania and Illinois, where we operate, and even the Caribbean. I was telling a story to one of the legislators on Monday when we were meeting with them, trying to get ahead of the story about Birmingham breaking. I was telling them, I was like, one of the proudest things or one of the best things I think we did is we were able to present a video to the state of Illinois when we were trying to bid for that license. And the Prime Minister of Labor in Aruba actually agreed to get on the video because he saw the impact that we had in that area, not only with the physical improvements to the facilities, but mainly with the employees. He saw that, hey, these people take care of their employees. They're not just lip service. They don't just talk about, hey, our employees are our best asset, but they live through that promise, or they make. So that was one of the biggest things that we had. And I also tell people, hey, one of our biggest advocates in Illinois was a pastor. He's like, hey, it's coming. I've researched these guys. They do it right. They're genuine. Through COVID, they came up here, even though they didn't have a facility, they came up here and helped and participated in this community, in this area, to try to make things better because they wanted to be part of the community even before, they opened the facility. We started the process in Illinois back in 2014. So it was a long process, but, we wanted to be part of that community. And, one of the things I tell people is when we presented to the IGB, the Illinois Gaming Board, we were sitting in a room with about 20 to 30 people, more than half of which didn't belong to our team. When I say didn't belong to our team, they weren't part of the Wind Creek organization as employees, or they were community leaders. They were, like I said, the Apostle Whites and those, and they were there supporting us. When you watch the other guys, it was just the business folks. It was nobody else. So we had went in and made ourselves part of that community. And I think that's what actually pushed us across the finish line.
Yeah.
Hey, can I jump in for a minute?
Sure. Are you going to ask to go to Aruba? Is that what you're going to ask? I mean, because I've already asked.
That's on my list.
Been glad to have you guys. It's a great experience.
But before we get to Aruba and my personal agenda, let's talk about Chicago. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. So when Josh told me about the deal there, and when I saw the news story about it, I was happy and excited. Is there a particular reason? And now you're saying that you've been really working this for 10 years, this deal for 10 years. Is there a particular reason or set of reasons that Chicago was a high priority for Wind Creek Entertainment?
Well, besides the fact that we couldn't invest in Alabama, it is a very, we had a great location. We were introduced to the mayors of East Hazelcrest and Homewood early on. We found them to be great partners. They've helped us along the way. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a good business decision. The business decision too, right? I mean, it's right off the interstate. We've done very well with a facility right off the interstate here in Atmore, Alabama, and the population is a little bit better in Illinois, the Chicago Southland. So it was obviously an opportunity that we thought was great, and we actually have several execs that are from the Illinois area, so they were pushing it hard from a personal. Hey, I get to go home and visit folks that I hadn't seen in a while. But just at the end of the day, it was just a great opportunity for us, business opportunity.
So you say the population was better. I assume you're talking about the size of the population, perhaps the
absolutely.
Perhaps the income, disposable income potential there, and also you have access to not just south suburban Chicago land, as we call it, Chicago land, but you also have north, I guess that would be northeast Indiana, that
That's
you
correct.
can tap into, Gary and Maryville and some of those other places, right?
Well, Gary just opened up a new Hard Rock casino. So, that portion, there's a lot of competition there, but you're absolutely right for the rest of it. And look, I don't want to disparage anybody, but, one of the things that I mentioned, in our conversations with some of the legislators in Alabama last year, is you go to places like Hammond, Indiana, even Biloxi, Mississippi, and you start looking at these large corporations that they want to tout, investing. I'm like, they don't. They go and build a facility, and then all the money starts to flow to their corporate headquarters, and then they forget about you. They're not reinvesting in their facilities, and it's evident when you go and visit these places that they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've got a lot of, Josh, I got a lot of homeboys that I grew up with in Chicago that some of them might need jobs. I mean, how much, even at this age, some of them might need jobs. What kind of hiring are you guys doing? Do you plan to do in the inner city Chicago there?
So, we've got the majority of our position staff. We actually opened on November 11th.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, we held a job fair, and we had, I want to say, don't quote me on this, a little over 3,000 people show up at that job fair, where we actually talked to everybody that showed up that day. I mean, we had several booths set up. I was in a booth. Jay Doris, our CEO, our VP of HR, everybody, all the execs, along with several other people, sat and we talked to them. And one of our ideas is that we hire for will, not necessarily skill. So the big thing in those auditions is what we call them, is seeing if you have the right mentality, the right personality, I should say, better than mentality, to interact with our guests. And that's the big thing that we do. We also had about 15,000 online applications. So there was a lot of interest in coming to work. But as we go forward, there's always going to be openings and opportunities. So, hey, Josh has all my contact. Just have them reach out. And if there's something that's a fit, we're looking for good people all the time.
Nice.
Yeah. You mentioned the reinvestment portion is the last thing we'll get you out, but that's another thing that I think needs to be highlighted here in the state is people know y'all for the shiny casinos, and that's natural, I guess, and because they see y'all at gambling negotiations, and that's when y'all enter into most news stories. But one of the things when I went down and talked to everybody that I learned about that I had no clue about, been reporting for a long time, is just the number of different businesses in the state of Alabama that y'all now operate and now participate in, and the number of employees, the amount of taxes, the amount of tax revenue that's paid out, but really, as I've told a lot of people, if you're a lawmaker in this state, there's a pretty good chance that the Poarch Creeks have a business somewhere in your district, or somewhere around in your district that's impacting it in some way. And why do you think it is that folks just don't know about that?
Well, I do think that we can do a better job, obviously, of getting that story out. But our personality or our culture is not necessary to talk about ourselves all the it's just not who we are. And but in order to get things done, we realize now that that's some of the things that we have to explain, because our opponents have done a pretty good job of saying, hey, they've got 3 casinos in the state that don't necessarily pay state taxes, but they don't talk about the $300 million investment that we did down in Foley, Alabama, or the investments that we made in Huntsville, actually funding the entrance to Gate 9, and several of the other federal contracting businesses that we bring in. Those don't get talked about enough, and we need to do a better job of getting that out there to say, look, and look, at the end of the day, the reason we don't have a revenue, because, the tribe can't necessarily pay taxes off of its trust properties, but the reason we don't have a revenue share agreement with the state is not necessarily on us. We've been trying to do that since 2000.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, and when you're partnering with the likes of Disney and the U.S. military, I'd say you're doing something. You're doing something right. And so we need to maybe through other places we can let some folks know and maybe broaden the perspective of exactly who the tribe is and what y'all have been doing. And but we tell everybody here that listen. Your support for one fantastic podcast is invaluable. I know that. But listen, Arthur, man, we really appreciate you coming on and spending some time and for what you do for us and for what y'all have done for the state. We really do appreciate it. It means a lot.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That's Arthur Mothershed. What they do is. He's right. They don't talk about it enough. It's not for they don't do it, and I think they've been painted a lot of different times into different perspectives of people, and some folks have taken advantage of that, and I think that's hopefully about to change some. And so, all right, let's slide out. We'll wrap it up here in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. We're back in a minute. Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person. Really appreciate Arthur Mothershed coming on, spending some time with us, and also the Poarch Creeks for what they do, sponsoring the program, SPLC for sponsoring the program, and all of everybody else who chips in and makes this thing go, and listens and leaves reviews. We've had some very nice reviews. We do very well in the review game. Nice. And what I'm most proud of on the reviews. All of the words are spelled right. They have the proper "your" used whenever, it's So nice to have like a smart audience out there. So,
Oh, very good.
yeah. And if you would like to do that, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, or I think Spotify does reviews now too. So
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the only one that does reviews?
I think that one or it may be Spotify, may be one of the others, but somebody else does reviews at this point, and you can leave ratings anyways. And so, if you do that, leave us a good one. Don't leave us a bad one. I mean, that wouldn't be right for the Christmas season. And we've started the Christmas season, and I know this because I went to my first kids' Christmas program last night. Which was really weird to pack in 65 degrees outside, pack in right before Thanksgiving and listen to Christmas music. But it was very sweet. It was very nice. Had a really sweet little moment in that. They had it was kindergarten through third grade. Kids and it's a small little private school over in Decatur where my niece goes to school, and there was one little girl in the middle of one of the songs who had to go up and do a solo portion, right? She just had to sing a little solo, and she was standing on they got like little risers that they're standing on. She's standing next to a little girl who's obviously her friend, and so she goes over and she starts singing, and she sings and she comes off, and as she comes off, the little girl who's standing next to her leans over and gives her just a two thumbs up. And it was just the kindest thing that I had. I mean, it was so, just so spontaneous and, and you could tell the little girl was just as nervous as could be about having to do it. Of course. I mean, she's third grade and, but it was so nice. There's another kid there, this little boy who was not hearing any of that shit. All right. He was not singing. He was not clapping. He was not smiling. It looked like my man was standing up there looking like he was denying some bank loans or something that day. He was like, "No, sir."
See, I didn't want to be here, and I'm not going to pretend that I wanted to be here.
That's right. I didn't ask for this. Y'all made me stand here. You made me comb my hair. You made me put on this vest and all this nonsense, and I'm going to stand up here, but I ain't doing none of it. So,
you can't make me sing.
That's right. Can't make me sing either. I don't care. Take your pictures. You're going to get a picture of me just standing here. That's what's happening.
With a frown on my face.
That's right. He was because he was just the whole time, man. Just as stoic. I mean, kids around him just clapping and singing and stuff. He was not hearing it, man. Like the warden, walking the floor. I'll send you. I can't post it, of course, somebody else's kid or whatever.
Right,
but man, I zoomed in on. I got the picture of the full kid singing and everything, and I zoomed in on that one kid's face. Man, it is hilarious. It is hilarious. Speaking of hilarious, or the opposite of hilarious, the Trump administration, this is our right wing nut for the week. So the Trump administration, the new one coming in, and the Trump cabinet, because they've killed irony. It's been murdered, dead. You can't even spoof it on Saturday Night Live. You can't spoof this cabinet. It is literally, if you went through each position and thought, who would be the craziest, funniest name to say might get this spot, and named them off, Trump is like currently saying, yeah, I can top that. I can top that. Dr. Oz. Yeah. Matt Gaetz, Linda McMahon for oh my God. It's not funny, but if you don't laugh, my God, it's, because what's coming. What's coming is exactly what I talked about last week. This is what I hated about the Trump administration the first time around. The main thing, or one of the main things that I hated, was it was endless BS. Constantly, every day there was something else, man. Every single day. And now, here we come again.
It's like the bar is so freaking low. It's scary. One thing I have to say is, and people that know me and know you know, from a ideological standpoint where we are, and where a political standpoint where we are. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that while I had many, many, many complaints about the Reagan administration, about the two Bush administrations, the one thing I don't believe I ever thought was those are just freaking incompetent people. I never had that thought. I don't, at least not that I can recall.
I had that thought a few times.
Did you? I don't remember having that thought.
Yeah, the W administration especially. Alberto Gonzalez.
Oh, well, but he's, but if you juxtapose Roberto Gonzalez, who, by the way, is the managing partner of one of the largest and most influential law firms in Nashville, with Matt Gaetz. I mean, come on.
Oh, well, yeah. No, there's no comparison. But Brownie might be a comparison. A heck of a job, Brownie.
Well, yeah. I mean, in retrospect, because he didn't do a heck of a job.
Yeah. But I will say though, that's a lower level cabinet position. You can really think of the head of FEMA as a a marquee job or whatever. And but it just man. I get really tired of some of the political appointments from both sides, where you just, you recycle somebody through there and you're thinking, really, what the hell? Isn't there somebody more qualified to do that job? Right. But, it just, this deal with them now,
the fixation with TV personalities.
Well, that's who he is. You elect a TV guy, and he is. We know him at this point. He's this superficial idiot. He really is a superficial idiot that has been propped up his entire life by abusing the laws and the fact that he's been ultra wealthy. And there's a great interview clip of Phil Donahue, the late great Phil Donahue, interviewing Trump, reading sections of his book to him about denying black people apartments. Rent.
I hadn't seen that clip. Okay,
it's really interesting, and because he talks about, because Trump says in his book that he didn't deny black people that what he denied was welfare cases, and he didn't care if they were black or white or not. He was not going to accept welfare cases because they were going to tear down his property values, and he was not making any excuses for that. And Phil Donahue was calling him out for it, and it just. That this is who he is. He doesn't, because in that interview, Trump's like, yeah, I should probably handle that better. Yeah, I should probably, that's right. Because it's a completely different approach than he takes with the regular news media. And I guarantee you it's because he had more respect for Phil Donahue, because Phil Donahue was a TV personality with some standing and some stature. And that's the way he values all of life, is this celebrity, this aura around folks this is the person you've elected president. This is the guy.
True. That's true. And I think it also explains why he, even when he has had beefs with people, and I know this is a whole controversial thing. We may not have a lot of time to get into it, but, he still welcomed Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski down to Mar-a-Lago, to have a sit down with them on background, which, by the way, I have a problem with. It shouldn't have been on background.
Yeah.
But anyway, has a sit down with them because in the final analysis, he's a fame whore. That's what he is. He's a fame whore. Yeah. And so he's willing to embrace, as you said, embrace people because of his perception of celebrity. He's fixated with it. And I think, unfortunately, not only is that informing his choices for the cabinet, but it also informs the choice that many people made to vote for him. Yeah. I think, again, it's the celebrity factor.
Yes, it is.
It's the fame factor. It's the perception of wealth. These superficial things.
It is. I think. But to me, in my opinion, where that becomes a factor is it's the fame factor that allows him to have such an ego and such a lack of shame to say certain things about himself, and it's so uncommon. in any walk of life, much less in a political walk of life where you're in front of a camera all the time and you're saying these things, to just be so brazenly out there and so brazenly braggadocious, about yourself, and about what you can do. And I think people buy it from him because it's the confidence with which he sells it. And I've argued a lot and will continue to do so that we're playing Trump wrong. And we've been playing Trump wrong for a long time. And the way to play Trump is not this resistance and attacking of him and what he's doing. It's to do what Scarborough and Mika did, but with an eye on molding Trump to understand better the other side, the other point of view, and to pitch it to him as this is the popular thing with all of the popular people. Okay, here look at these celebrities. Look at George Clooney and all of these people whose world you would love to be a part of. This is what they believe. Okay, this is what we're doing. Here's what we think you should do, and you could do it in X way or this way. I mean, look how easily he's pushed to these different things. I mean, my God, just push him. I mean, stop messing around with it, and and acting like the resistance is going to do something. All that does is embolden him because it gives him stature with the idiots who are chanting his name. Chant his name on your side with some people who he really cares about, and I guarantee you that guy will turn over. If Jimmy Kimmel invited that guy on his show and they had a good, productive conversation, I guarantee you that Jimmy Kimmel over the next 4 years would have a direct line into the Oval Office, could call him up, could tell him endless amounts of things and give him advice on different stuff. Now, some of it he would take, some of it he wouldn't, but I think it would mold him and push him that way. I'll stand by this forever.
Well, I think you're right when you talk about Trump's pliability, but I think there is one factor that also has to be accounted for, and I suspect that in the final analysis, this is the factor that we really can't account for,
right?
And that, well, I said we need to account for it, and then I said we can't account for it. What I mean is we have to account for it, but we can't control it, is what I mean.
Right.
And that is the Putin factor. I still believe that Putin has his hand up Trump's behind the same way a puppeteer does a puppet. Yeah. And so while I agree with you that Trump is pliable and that Trump is easily influenced by these superficial things like celebrity and fame, and that he could be influenced to some degree, I still think in the final analysis, he is being controlled. I truly believe he's being controlled by Putin. I believe that with all my heart. I think that that's going to be the determining factor ultimately in what he does in terms of U.S. policy writ large.
Yeah. Well, I think the control that Putin has is financial. And that's the other thing, which also, again, is a pretty easy thing to control. Give Trump some options on how he can make money with people whose ideas and goals are in decency and are acceptable. But I guarantee you could mold him that way as well.
But don't you think it's too late, though, because he's had these, I think it's financial. I think initially it was financial. It was the lure of making money. But then I think it became something deeper and more insidious because of all of these private meetings that they've had and whatever alliances and plots.
I think he's in business with them. Yeah, I think he's in business with them in some way.
And I think he's compromised. Yeah, I think he's so compromised with Putin now that it's more than just financial. And if the extent of, if the depth of the level of compromise is ever disclosed or revealed, I think it would ruin him. It probably would even put him in prison, I suspect. Yeah. So that's why I think ultimately Putin is calling the shots.
And you may be right, and I may be wrong. I may be crazy. I think somebody once sang that.
I think that's a Billy Joel song.
I think you're right. Yeah. All right, but I'll tell you this. We got to get out of here. All right. No matter how y'all want to control Trump, just remember, you got 4 years of this, so treat it however you want to. It's because it's not going to get any saner. All right, we're going to be off next week. Have a happy Thanksgiving out there. traveling around. Y'all be safe. Be happy. Try not to kill each other over politics.
Please.
And, just be safe.
Peace.